everyone, this is Jason with Raising Code, the blog, and today I'm here to talk to you about building an image with Packer from an existing image. I'm currently using Windows Server 2012, so we're going to be using that in our process, and then ultimately we're going to use Packer to make another image with some provisional calls to allow information to launch the Internet Information Services. So in terms of what you need to get started, a version of Packer later than version 1, a notepad editor, and a existing virtual box. Okay, so today we have a virtual machine currently running to save time. It's running Windows Server 2012 R2. The first thing we need to do before we export this image is we have to do a couple things. We have to first of all make sure the appropriate settings are configured so that Packer can communicate with anything that is spun off of this image via the Windows Remote Management Service. And the second thing we need to do is we need to set up the networking. So we'll do that in the virtual machine settings, but in the actual OS we need to set up Windows Remote Management. I'm going to launch a command shell, and we first of all need to make sure that Windows RM is running. It's pretty easy to do. We just type in Windows RM, quick config, Q for quick. Maybe it's quiet. It is running. This is great. We're going to go ahead and set up Windows RM to allow for basic authentication, and this is where the security comes into play about doing this in production. I would not recommend this for production, but for general testing of your Packer builds before they go in the public cloud, or testing between developer communities, this is a viable option in my opinion. Later in another video we can talk about how to set up the secure settings for remote management. So we're going to basically allow basic authentication, and we do that by doing Windows RM set Winrm config client auth basic equal to true. And if the font is showing up really small, I know this is a video, I'll have some other commands that we're running today in the bottom of the video post. So if they didn't come out very well, at least there'll be options to run those commands manually from the video comments at the bottom. So I set basic communication authentication is true. It's showing back on the Windows Server. RM is showing is true. We need to make 2 more settings to Windows RM, and then we should be set on the actual Windows Server side. The next one is setting up the Windows service with basic authentication, and that is when RM config service auth. Essentially it's the same command but with service instead of client. Set that to basic as well, and then enter. It is set up. The next thing we need to do is we need to allow for unencrypted. So it uses there's 2 ports that Windows RM uses. It's 5985 and 5986. If this was the secure SSL version, we'll be using 5986. Okay, so unencrypted is set, basic authentication is set, we're all set. The next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the virtual machine is actually set up for local area network. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to shut down our Windows Server R2 2012. And we are going to make sure that from a networking perspective we are using NAT instead of Bridge or any other option as our network adapter, and that looks good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we can now export this virtual machine as a image or appliance in the VirtualBox Manager. We do that by going to File, Export Appliance. We're going to select the 2012 R2 server that we've been modifying up until now, and we're going to choose the appliance to go in the same directory as our Packer files just for simplicity, and we'll need that later on when we build our Packer image. We're going to choose next, export. This can typically take up to 4 to 10 minutes for me, sometimes probably larger for other larger virtual machine images that I've had. So I'm going to pause the video and then we'll pick back up when this completes. Okay, now that my appliance has been exported, it's saved in my Packer directory, I have opened up a command shell, and I'm going to do simply an output of that directory listing. The important files to keep aware of keep in mind of, I should say, are the packer_test JSON file and the Windows Server 2 OVA. That's the image or appliance that we just exported. The Packer cache is just simply a cache that is there for continuous builds that helps generally over time. I could actually delete this and it would not really affect us too much in this test. One of the things I want to do next is actually show you the Packer build file, which is the Packer test JSON. But before I do that, so currently I have up the Packer build file, which, as I showed you before, it's really just a very scaled down version of what you could do with Packer in terms of provisioning and making your environment automated, if you will. So what we're doing today again is we're simply just installing IIS. So I'm going to walk through this at a very high level. I assume that most of you have some experience with using Packer build files, but if you don't, there's really three components. There's builders, provisioners, and then post commands, and I'm really just using the builder provisioners portion of this for now. The builders piece is what's important. It basically specifies the type of build we're working with, what we're going to be building, and that's the VirtualBox OVF. We provide a source path of where our VM image that we exported, our appliance, if you will. We provide the communication mechanism, and then in here, which is going into my security yellow flag concern, we really don't want to have username and passwords inside of the Packer build file. That's where Secure SSL will work, and the other security mechanisms that Windows ARM has that we didn't set up today. Definitely look forward into that. Okay, so welcome back. Right now we're going to run a couple things to make sure we are all set up for the Packer build process. The first thing we need to do two things right now. First of all, we need to verify that the Win Remote Manager client is set up on my host system to run and have no problems connecting to the virtual machine the Packer will build during the build process. And we need to make that a trusted host. So we're going to do winrm set winrm config client, and this is where the property comes in as trusted host equals, and then this is where my machine name comes in, and I've opened up my Packer build file because I had it saved there already. If you're in doubt, it's okay to open back up your gold image and find the host name. And I think that's it. Yep. So right now, Windows ARM returned that it is connected. We do have AllowUnencrypted. If you don't have AllowUnencrypted, essentially run the same command that we ran on the servers here. And just to verify some other things in the file, everything looks good. So it's connecting to the standard ports of 5985 for the unencrypted. And as a just reminder, as you move forward, consider using the HTTPS connection. So the next thing, now that we have our settings for Windows RM on the host system set up, we want to verify that Packer, the file that we've made, is actually a good file. So I'm going to run validate on my Packer test JSON. Okay, so that looks good. And the next thing is we're going to build the Packer instance. This generally takes some time, but not too often. What we'll probably do is pause the video and come back. So as we can see now, Packer is still running. It's importing the OVA file, and actually at this point, it's actually making a temporary virtual machine so it can apply the overlay settings, and then it's going to resave the virtual machine as a OVF file, which is another image. It's starting the virtual machine. Actually, what I could even do, oh, yep, it's actually coming up right now. Usually after Windows RM becomes available, that's usually the last challenge for us to really get beyond. So I'll wait for that to come up. That generally symbols a, yep, so we're in good shape. Windows RM is running, it's connecting, it's applying the settings that we have requested in our build portion of the Packer build file. Hey, welcome back everyone. I just want to highlight that the process is complete. There is now a new OVF file created per the last line of the output of Packer saying that it was successfully completed. Down from the very bottom where I have highlighted is really a good sign to keep in mind of if you're able to connect to the Winrm, which is all the efforts that we did, things look great. I actually just CD'd into the OVF location just to verify that there's actually data there. Everything looks great. The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to set up in our virtual box the virtual appliance image that we just created. Hey, welcome back, folks. We have VirtualBox Manager currently running. Our plan now is to get this with the latest Packer image imported. Once we import it, we can start the virtual machine that was imported, show that Windows IS is running as a web server, and then we can just verify from all intents and purposes that our Packer build process completely worked. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to import appliance from the file menu in VirtualBox Manager. I'm going to go to the location of where my Packer OVF file was saved. I'm going to import it. Next. And it's off. Generally, can't really give a good estimate. It usually takes about a minute or so. So I'm going to keep the video going. Feel free to fast forward a minute if you're kind of pressed for time. But usually I just keep the settings the same as when I import the appliance into the VirtualBox again. So this is now making a virtual machine from the OVF. Okay, so down at the bottom here, there's a new Packer virtual machine image from our base image that we were working with earlier in the video. So our goal was to just verify that Packer actually worked and things seem to be applied from the provisioner. So we're going to look at the IS information, and the log should have told us that as well if there were some problems, but we're going to just launch it and make sure that things look great. And this should be pretty much a replica from the Windows Server VM that we were using. Okay, and I'm going to type in IS web server just to see if, oh, okay. There it is. It is there. It's currently has a default website. So, essentially we're done. Packer has installed the web server. We have showed how to do this from an existing virtual machine image based on the Packer processes that have been outlined by HashiCorp. So if you have other questions about how to use Packer, maybe even use a different virtual technology like VMware or the process isn't different that much. Just the Packer build file will change just slightly. What I'll also do is I'll send in the comments the commands we ran for the remote management to configure it. And if you have any comments, please like the video if you enjoyed it. Any feedback will be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching today.